Hello and welcome back to another episode of Naptown Hustle. Today we're back with another game of PDH, Pauper Commander. We're in the middle of a tournament. This is match number 2. If you miss match number 1, you can click the card up in the top right corner to go watch it now. We play at 25 life with no commander damage. This is match number 2, Fynn the Fangbearer versus Tatyova Benthic Druid. Fynn is kind of an aggressive infect deck and Tatyova is a combo deck. So without anything else, let's jump into it. Game 1, Tatyova is going to be on the play on the left of your screen, and I open up with an island. I pass, and Alan plays a Sedge Scorpion. Passes back. I play a second island and pass back. He draws, untaps, and plays his commander, Fynn the Fangbearer. I respond with a counterspell, countering it, and then go to my turn. On my turn, I untap, draw, and play Harrow, which sacrifices a land and then searches my library for 2 lands and puts them on the battlefield. On his turn, he plays Blight Mamba and attacks for 1 with his Sedge Scorpion. On my turn, I untap, draw, and pay 5 for my commander, Tatyova Benthic Druid. And I pass back. He untaps, draws, and attacks with the Blight Mamba and the Sedge Scorpion. I decide to block the Blight Mamba to keep my effect at 0, and he pumps it with Wild Might, which gives it +4/+4, killing my commander. On my turn, I play a Scaled Herbalist. It's one of my combo pieces. It can put a land into play from my hand by tapping, and pass back with 3 mana up. He untaps and draws and attacks with both the Blight Mamba and the Sedge Scorpion. When I block the Blight Mamba, he pumps it with Bull's Strength, which gives it +2/+2 and Trample. I play Negate, countering Bull's Strength, and then he pays 1 for a Vitality Charm, giving it +1/+1 and Trample. This puts 2 Infect onto my creature. I untap and draw. I float a green and then play a bounce land for turn, putting the forest back to my hand. I then tap my creature to put the forest into play. I then pay 6. For an Orchard Strider, which creates 2 food tokens when it comes into play. He untaps and draws and pays 1 for a Wild Growth, enchanting a forest. He then attacks with his Blight Mamba and the Sedge Scorpion. I decide to block the Blight Mamba with my Orchard Strider, and he regenerates it. He then pays 1 for a Tajuru Blightblade and 1/1 with Death Touch, and passes back. I untap and draw and pay 7 for my commander for a second time. I then play my land for turn, and I draw a card and gain a life, and pass back. He untaps and draws and pays 4 for his commander, Fynn the Fangbearer. And then he attacks with 2 Death Touch creatures. Now, if those hit me, I will get 2 poison each. I block 1 with my Strider, killing it, and I take 2 poison damage. I then untap and draw. I play an island as my land for turn, and I draw a card and gain a life. I then tap my creature to put another land into play, a sack land, and I draw a card and gain a life. I then sack it to search my library for a basic land, which will let me draw another card and gain another life. I then pay 2 for a Nature's Lore to search my library for a forest and to put it into play. I draw a card and gain a life. I then pay 3 for a Tragic Lesson to draw 2 cards, and then return a land back to my hand. I then pay 2 life for Gitaxian Probe. He has several pump spells, removal spell, and an artifact that can make his small creatures unblockable. I then pay 5 for Mnemonic Wall, getting Gitaxian Probe back again. I pay 2 more life to draw another card. And I pass. On his turn, he untaps and draws and pays 2 for Master's Rebuke, dealing death touch damage to my commander. He then pays 2 for Larger Than Life, giving his infect creature +4/+4 in trample, and he attacks with everything. I decide to block the 5/5 infect creature with my wall, which kills it, and I take 4 poison from the 2 death touch creatures. On my turn, I untap and draw and play an Ulamog's Crusher for 8. I then play a Mystic Sanctuary, putting the Tragic Lesson back on top of my library, and I pass back. He untaps and draws, and he attacks with everything. I block his commander with Ulamog's Crusher, and I block his Death Touch creature. He plays Ranger's Guile on the infect creature, giving it +1/+1 and hexproof. I respond with a Dispel, countering it. Then, before damage is dealt, I decide to play a Curfew. I return my tapping creature back to my hand, and he returns his Death Touch creature back to his hand. I should then take 1 infect damage instead of 2, which I showed on the screen. So I should be at 8 infect. I untap and draw and play the Tragic Lesson that I put back on top of my library with Mystic Sanctuary, which lets me draw 2 and return a land back to my hand. I then play a Peregrine Drake for 5, and then untap 5 lands, including my bounce land. I play my land for turn and island, and then play my Scaled Herbalist. I transmute Drift of Phantasms for 3 to go search my library for a 3-drop. I grab Compulsive Research. I play Compulsive Research for 3, drawing 3 cards, and then discarding a land card. I then pass. Alan untaps and draws and plays his Tajuru Blightblade again for 1. And then he pays 2 for Smell Fear, which proliferates, taking me to 9, and then fights his Death Touch creature with the Peregrine Drake. He then attacks with the Blight Mamba. I don't think he realized at this point that he is in danger of losing the game. He probably should have killed the Scaled Herbalist because of the combo piece. Also, he did leave those 2 forests untapped and meant to regenerate the Blight Mamba. That's why I didn't die there. He should be tapped out at this point. On my turn, I pay 9 for my commander for a 3rd time. And then play my land for turn, a command tower, drawing a card. I then transmute a Muddle the Mixture for 3, which lets me search my library for a 2-drop and put it in my hand. I grab a Tidal Bore. At this point, I'm going to go for the combo. So it's a little confusing to watch on the screen, so I'll walk you through it. What happens is I tap the Scaled Herbalist to put a land into play, and then I'm going to play Tidal Bore to untap the Scaled Herbalist. I'm going to use the alternate cost of Tidal Bore by returning a land to my hand rather than paying mana for it. I'm going to return the Mystic Sanctuary back to my hand. The Tidal Bore will untap the Scaled Herbalist, and the Tidal Bore will go to the graveyard. I then will put the Mystic Sanctuary into play by tapping the Scaled Herbalist, which will put Tidal Bore on top of my library and trigger my commander. I order the triggers so that I can draw the Tidal Bore off the top of my library after putting it there with the Mystic Sanctuary. This puts me back on square 1, except for I've gained a life, and I can tap the Mystic Sanctuary for a blue. So then I do this again by tapping a Scaled Herbalist to put the Mystic Sanctuary into play, and then playing the Tidal Bore to return the Mystic Sanctuary back to my hand, untap the Scaled Herbalist, and then triggering my commander to put the Tidal Bore on top of my library and then draw it to gain a life and make a blue. So at the end of this, I'll have infinite blue and infinite life. So then with my infinite mana, I'm going to use Capsize to bounce all of his lands and all of his creatures and permanents back to his hand with buyback, and he scoops. So I won that first game with Tatyova, Benthic, Druid, so that's 1 out of 2 I need to win, so we're moving on to game 2. He opens with a forest and plays a Glistener Elf. I open with a sack land and immediately sack it to go get a forest and pass back. He untaps and draws, and attacks with his Glistener Elf for 1 poison, and then pays 2 for Blight Mamba. I untap and draw and play an island with my land for turn and pass back. He untaps and draws and plays a forest as his land for turn, and then attacks with both the Blight Mamba and the Glistener Elf for a total of 2 poison. He then pays 3 for a Whisper Silk Cloak. At the end of his turn, I pay 2 for a Growth Spiral, which lets me draw a card and put a land card from my hand onto the battlefield. I then pass my turn and untap and draw. I play a Koldama's Reach, which search my library for 2 basic land cards, put 1 in my hand and 1 on the battlefield. I then play my land for turn, an island, and pass back. He untaps and draws. And he attacks for 2 with his Blight Mamba and his Glistener Elf, taking me to 5 poison. He then pays 2 for his commander, Fynn the Fangbearer, and he pays 2 more to attach the Whisper Silk Cloak to it, and passes. I untap and draw. And I pay 5 for my commander, Tatyova. I then play a land and draw a card and gain a life. He untaps and draws. Plays a 5th land and then attacks with everything. I decide to block the Glistener Elf, and he pays 2 for Bull's Strength on the Blight Mamba, which gives it +2/+2 in trample. I respond with a Dispel countering it, and then I take 3 poison, 2 from his commander, and then 1 from the Blight Mamba, taking me to 8 poison. He regenerates the Blight Mamba. I then pay 3 to transmute Drift of Phantasms, getting a Capsize. Play my land for turn and draw a card. And I pass back. He untaps and draws, and attacks with everything for a total of 3 poison. I play the Capsize and bounce the Whisper Silk Cloak, and then I block his commander with my commander. Now, typically my commander would have killed his commander in this scenario, but I had taken an infect damage from the previous turn, so my commander is actually a 2/2, and his is a 1/3. Death touch. I untap and draw, and I pay 3 to transmute a Muddle the Mixture. At this point, I make a pretty big mistake. After thinking about it after the game, I could have used my Muddle the Mixture to go grab Moment's Peace, which would have bought me 2 turns of time to try to win the game. With the Scaled Herbalist in hand and the Mythic Sanctuary and the ability to go get my commander, over 2 turns I might have been able to use the Muddle Mixture again, the second time, to go get Tidal Bore and win the game. Getting the Kazmani's Transmutation here doesn't actually do almost anything for me. He still has that Whisper Silk Cloak in his hand, which I seem to have forgotten. So if I deal with his commander, he will hit me with his Blight Mamba unblockable, and I will lose the game. Pretty big mistake, and I think it cost me the game and the match, really. I think I might have been able to get to combo from here if I hadn't gone and gotten that. I then pay 2 for my Scaled Herbalist, and I play the Mystic Sanctuary, putting the Muddle Mixture back on top of my library. On his turn, he untaps and draws. He plays a land for turn, and then plays the Whisper Silk Cloak, and attaches it to his Blight Mamba. He attacks for 1 poison, killing me and ending the game. We're now 1-1, so the winner of the next game wins the match and advances to the next round. I'm on the play again, so I open with a Forest and pass. On his turn, he plays a Forest, and then plays a Moss Viper, a Death Touch 1/1. I untap and draw and play an island as my land for turn, and then play a Llanowar Scout, a 1/3 that taps to put a land card from my hand on the battlefield. On his turn, he plays his commander, Fynn the Fangbearer, and attacks for 1 Death Touch with his Moss Viper. I block the Moss Viper, and both of our creatures die. On my turn, I untap and draw and play 3 Visits, searching my library for a Force card and putting it into play. I then play a Bounce land, bouncing a Force back to my hand. On his turn, he untaps and draws, and attacks with Fynn the Fangbearer, giving me 2 poison. He then pays 3 for a Phyrexian Digester, a 2/1 infect creature. On my turn, I play a Forest, and then pay 5 to play my commander. He untaps and draws, plays a land for turn, and then attacks with everything. I decide to block his Phyrexian Digester, and he responds by playing Giant Growth, giving it +3/+3, and then he plays Charge Through, giving it Trample and drawing a card. He draws a card and plays it immediately. It is Predator's Strike, giving it another +3/+3 and Trample. This makes it an 8-power creature. So he tramples over 5 with the Digester, and gives 2 with his commander, taking me to 9 poison and killing Tatyova. On my turn, I play Curfew, bouncing his commander back to his hand. He untaps and draws and plays a land for turn, and tries to get in there for lethal with his Digester. I respond with a Dizzy spell, and he responds to my Dizzy spell with a Woodcutter's Grit, giving it Hexproof, and +2/+2. He deals 4 infect to me, taking me to 13 poison and killing me. So Fynn the Fangbearer wins it and goes to the next round. He will be playing Slippery Boggle in the quarterfinal. Good game to Alan, congratulations on his win. Tatyova does not have a lot of interaction, especially at low cost, and that Fynn deck can be pretty quick. Honestly, both of these decks have a pretty tough time with a lot of the other decks in the format, so it was nice to see a pretty evenly matched game against them here. Up next, we'll have the 4 quarterfinals. So that'll be Fynn the Fangbearer versus Slippery Boggle, Helena and Tormod versus Plaguecrafter, Disciple of Deceit versus Loyal Apprentice, and Armix and Togo versus Agar the Freezing Flame. Comment down below with who you think will win the whole tournament. Thanks for watching and have a good one.